The vaccination campaign here in the US has been highly successful. And I don't mean that just in terms of getting people vaccines. It's been very profitable, we'll say, for the companies making it and for their shareholders. Because Pfizer, Johnson & Johnson, and AstraZeneca, three of the world's top coronavirus vaccine manufacturers, have paid out a combined $26 billion in dividends and stock buybacks to their shareholders over the past year. A sum that conveniently can be compared to the cost to fully inoculate all of Africa's entire 1.3 billion person population. That is not a random comparison. It's a pretty timely one because many countries in Africa have thus far gotten the supply of vaccine necessary to inoculate less than 1% of their population. Many have received literally no doses, not a dose, not like for the wealthy to get preferential access to, not for the president to get, no doses. But meanwhile, some people are making a lot of money. And some people like me stupidly didn't think to invest in them earlier last year. But anyway, Bridget, that's quite a sum of money going out specifically. That's not like their whole profits, that's dividends and stock buybacks.
It's so much money, and really it's one of those times where you can really see clearly how capitalism has kind of failed us globally. That, in like America, we're doing so good at vaccinating people, and then you look at other countries and they don't have nearly enough vaccines, and people are getting so rich. I mean, it really does make you question, like, what are our priorities here as a nation, as a people? And it seems to be money.
Yeah, and making sure that they have continued access to that. Let me throw out another number here. This is a different set of companies, but the new report, and you can get all this information, by the way, a great write-up Jake Johnson did, Common Dreams. Pfizer, BioNTech, and Moderna are projecting revenues of $33.5 billion just from those vaccines. Not everything that they produce, just from those vaccines, a massive amount of money. And let's see, the report notes that one of the reasons pharma companies have been able to generate such large profits is because of intellectual property rules that restrict production to a handful of companies. So in theory, without this international agreement, you could have generic versions of these vaccines being produced around the world. That would likely have the negative side effect of dropping the cost a little bit, how much money they're making, those profits, dividends, stock buybacks, all of that. I guess the silver lining though would be that way more people around the world would get vaccinated. There'd be a lot less COVID and a lot less needless deaths. So I don't know, Bridget, what do you think? Pros, cons?
Yeah, less people dying of COVID and more people being vaccinated sounds horrible. Like, how can you choose?
Exactly. Well, horrible for their board, perhaps. But anyway, people are pushing for a change to the current way the system is set up and the intellectual property rights involved in it. The Maza Seyum, the leader of the People's Vaccine Alliance's Africa campaign, called on Joe Biden specifically to, quote, put the health of all of humanity and shared economic prosperity ahead of the private profits of a few corporations by ending US opposition to the proposed intellectual property waiver. Which is true, and by the way, it's not even necessary, but Maza there is referring to shared economic prosperity. It's not even that the way that it's working right now. We talked about the profits for a few of these companies, and sure, it's a payday for their investors. It's not that the world economy is going to do better. I've looked into it a little bit, and it turns out that a continued pandemic all around the world's bad for trade. It's just good potentially for these companies that they can make a ton of money first, vaccinating wealthy countries, and then assuming they maintain their exclusive ability to produce this, also making that much money many times over, eventually someday getting to the rest of the world. It's a payday for them, but it's bad for most other industries.
It is bad, and I think you really hit the nail on the head. When we think about the economic impact of COVID, we should be thinking about it like that, that if folks are dead, that's bad, that's economically bad for everybody, right? And so, let alone putting people first, we should really not be thinking about this from a perspective of how can we make these shareholders richer? How can they strategically, make decisions to line their pockets? We need to do what's best for all of us. And it's clear to me that we're not doing that, but I hope that things change. I'm happy to see people putting pressure on Biden, asking if they can, waive this intellectual property. It really, I think particularly in a global health crisis, if there's ever gonna be a time where people are more important than money, it should be now.
Exactly, yeah, and he could do it. He could do it. He could be a leader He could be the bold FDR 2.0 that he wants to. He could save hundreds of thousands of lives conservatively, at least a couple 100,000 lives. He could do that. And think about if he did that. Would those industries be angry? Yes, they'd be angry. But I think they'd have a little bit of solace in the fact that they've apparently already earned dozens of billions of dollars. Like they're gonna do pretty well. It would have hurt their stock price a little bit, sure. And I guess that would bother them since they bought back so much of it. But the dividends already went out. Their investors have gotten some money. You could even announce it a month in advance, give them a little bit of time to prepare or something. But think about the good that would be done morally, economically, politically. Couldn't hurt Biden to be seen as the guy who once again, like, can we get to the point where we stop simply asserting that America's the best country, that we should be the leader of the world, we do the most good around the world, and actually demonstrate it? Show, don't tell, that sort of thing. Can we have that, Biden? But I really doubt it, Bridget. I don't see him as being bold enough, strong enough, courageous enough to stand against these industries.
I mean, I hope you're wrong. We'll see. I think that right now what we need is bold action. And I think the last time that I was on this show, we talked so much about how, particularly when it comes to COVID, the United States has a lot of work to do in terms of reinstating our persona as this world leader. I think that Trump really did a lot of damage to the way that we think of ourselves and the way that other countries see us abroad. And so I think bold, decisive action by Biden could go a long way in repairing some of that damage that we've been doing for the last 4 years.
Yeah, no, you're dead right. And he wants to do some of that. He re-entered Paris. But that's easy. That's easy, and that's so automatic. There wasn't a Dem running in 2020 that wasn't gonna do that. That's easy. Will that get you some cred internationally? Sure, I'm sure that they like it. But think about if you were to not only release the patents, but start the US government buying and shipping vaccines around the world. And if you think that that's crazy, understand that we've already done stories. Multiple countries are doing that.
Yeah.
China and Russia are doing that. And specifically to gain favor in these countries from their government and from their people. Imagine if Biden did that. And by the way, like we said, in 2 weeks, we're gonna run out of people that really want it anyway. We'll have the excess supply, we could do it. Think about the goodwill, how much goodwill we would get. There's little individually that he could do that would be more beneficial in virtually every conceivable fashion than him making the vaccine available internationally to these countries that have been so callously left behind in this. This is, as everyone says, vaccine apartheid, and it doesn't have to be.
Absolutely, I completely agree with you, but I want to add one point, which is that it just goes to show how much Republicans have this grip on our discourse. We're not even having this conversation of whether or not we should be shipping our excess vaccines overseas, because if we did, I think half of the GOP leadership, their heads would explode. And so we're not even able to have conversations grounded in the reality of what's going on and where need actually lies, because we want to avoid this big partisan political tantrum that they would throw.
Yeah, I don't know. I say they're gonna be throwing a tantrum. Choose the battleground that you want to have the tantrum on, because right now they're just gonna make it about critical race theory or the situation of the border or something with Dr. Seuss. It's gonna be there either way. Make them freak out about the fact that you're giving these vaccines. I would argue that makes you look even better. The fact that Ted Cruz doesn't like it, that's a good. You want Ted Cruz to be opposed to you, both here in the US and internationally.
That's how you know you're doing something right.
Exactly. For more political news breakdowns, interviews, stories of activism, and me trying my hardest to care about the occasional big celebrity news story, subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/thedamagereport. And you can ring the bell wherever it is so you don't miss anything.